Hello dear friends, I'm Samuel Moore and welcome to this week's video lesson. In a few weeks' time, my third flamenco guitar tutorial book, Flamenco Guitar, Compa Essentials, Bulerías, will be released. This book and the series it's part of helps you unlock the spontaneous nature of flamenco performance. You can find out more about the book, as well as pre-order a copy, via the link in the description below. But today, I'd like to share with you a short extract from that book, so you can get a better sense of what it's all about. Specifically, I'm going to teach you a really simple Bulerías compass phrase that requires you to stay on one chord for a prolonged period of time. The phrase you're going to learn sounds like this. Here it is again, but with me counting the accented numbers. 12, 3, 6, 8, 10, 12, 3, 6, 8, 10. Before we talk about how to use that in the context of your wider playing, let's just learn the phrase. As you heard a moment ago, this is a relatively sophisticated phrase from a rhythmic perspective, and with that in mind, let's layer up our understanding of it. We'll start with the very basics, looking at essentially what the chords are and where they change. We'll then look at playing that in the most simple possible way with the right hand. We'll then look at how to play it in a syncopated way, the way I was playing, and then we'll conclude by adding in all the little frills and trills that make it sound really cool. So, from a harmonic perspective, this phrase is relatively straightforward. Essentially, it's 2 cycles of compass long, so you go around the 12-beat cycle of Bulerías twice. The first time, the whole thing is on this voicing of a B-flat chord. So it's like a B-flat bar chord, but without the bar. We're putting the finger on top instead. And we stay there for the first 12 beats of the compass. 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. But the second cycle of compass, we then only stay on that chord for the first half. 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we go to C9, 6, 7, B flat, voiced like so, 8, 9, and finally on beat 10 we conclude by landing on the A. So that's the cycle. 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So harmonically that's what's going on. Now, one little thing I would recommend here, and we'll talk about this in the context of just the basic playing with this hand, you're going to have to do something clever with those chords in order to make the changes comfortable. But first, let's turn our attention to this hand. The most simple thing to do when trying to get used to these chords and where they change is to essentially just go down and up with the index finger, like so. So in other words, 12 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and so on. And crucially, when doing that, you're going to mark the accents. So in other words, I want you to put a golpe or an emphasis on 12, 3, 6, 8, 10 and 12. In other words, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. If you play the first part of the phrase, where you're staying on this chord, that would sound like this. 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And then you carry on into the next cycle. 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is where we change the right hand pattern slightly. when we do the bit that goes 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 on C9, B flat, A, we're just going to go down with the thumb on the accents with a golpe. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And you're going to go with the index finger up, down to give you a bit of... So it's basically thumb, up, down, up, then B flat, thumb, up, down, up, and then thumb to close. And you can put a tap on beat 11 if you so choose. So in other words, 6 and 7 and 8 and 9 and 10, 11. And the reason we're playing it in that way with the thumb is we want to bring out that bass movement. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Now, there's one thing you've got to keep in mind here. When you're doing that set of chord movements, so imagine you've already played this bit, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and you're now in the second cycle of compass. 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here, when you do the and of beat 5, you need to start moving to the C9 chord. So these fingers are staying there, and as you do the upstroke on the and, you're already moving to the C9. And that means you're there and ready to play it on 6 and 7. Same principle here. On the and, start moving, and then you're ready to play it on 8 and 9. Same principle here. Start moving, and it doesn't matter the strings are open at that point. No one's going to hear it. It just gives you time to land the resolution chord when you need to. So if I do it really slowly, watch this hand and you'll see I'm moving slightly in advance of needing each chord. 12 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 and 9 and 10, 11. Before moving on, pause the video and take your time to get used to doing that. It's not easy to do, but it'll make a very big difference in terms of the ease of playing when you're doing this at full speed. So what we got so far is the most simple version of the phrase I played at the start. All sounding good. But that's not how I played it at the start, is it? I was doing some more sophisticated things when performing. So let's now turn our attention to layering up the layers of complexity even further. The first thing that you need to be able to do is play this in a syncopated way. That's kind of a fancy way of saying that you bring out the offbeats. So in other words, instead of marking 1 and 2 and 3 and or so on and so forth, syncopation would mean you're going 1 and 2 and 3 and. You're making sure the and is marked. Okay? In order to do this when playing this phrase, it's going to be really simple. In terms of this hand, whenever you're doing an accented beat, you're going to do a down strike with the golpe. Whenever you're doing an and, you're going to do an up strike with the index. Crucially though, you're not going to do any down strikes unless it's an accent. So in other words, 12 is accented, 12, 1, 2, 3 is accented, 3, 4, 5, then 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. But you're not going to do a down strike on 1, 2, or 4, 5, or 7, or 9, or 11. You're only going to mark the ands. So in other words, you're going to go down, up, up, up on 12 and 1 and 2 and. Then 3 and 4 and 5 and. Then 6 and 7 and 8 and 9 and 10 and 11 and. If you put all that into practice, what you'll get is something that sounds like this. 12 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 and 9 and 10 and 11 and then in the second cycle 12 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and then you're just going to play the final bit like you did before. 6 and 7 and 8 and 9 and 10, 11. Put that all together and you get this. So far so good. Now, the final layer of complexity. When I was performing this right at the start, you'll have noticed I was doing a little trill with this finger to add a bit more interest to the phrasing. This is the bit people struggle to get the most. But let me break it down for you to make it simple. All we're doing is on the second time you do the up strike on beats 12, 1, 2, you're going to do a little pull off. So you're going to go 12 and 1 and 2. You hear how that happened? 12 and 1 and 2 and then and. So the pull off happens on beat 2. 12 and 1 and 2 and. Then put it back so that you can then do it again. 3 and 4 and 5 and then the same principle in the second half. 6 and 7 and 8 and 9 and 10 and 11 and then carry that idea on into the next cycle of compass. 12 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and then of course the final bit as normal. 6 and 7 and 8 and 9 and 10, 11. So there you have it, guys. A simple Bulería phrase in which you're staying on the B flat chord for a prolonged period of time with a bit of syncopation and a few trills. Now you might be thinking at this stage, well, that's a great phrase, Samuel, but why are you showing it to us? Well, this goes to the heart of one of the main subjects covered in my new book. Essentially, when you're performing a palo like Bulerías, when you're required to play basic compass is essentially the core rhythmic ideas that you keep coming back to again and again in between other structural components such as falsettas and llamadas. Now, I'm not going to teach you what I'm about to describe, but I want to impart to you a really important concept that will serve you well when you're performing Bulerías. Let's say you're asked to play Bulerías basic compass. Most people gravitate towards a phrase that sounds like this. Now that's a perfectly functional and good phrase for playing Bulerías basic compass, but if you only know that, and you always just loop it and loop it again and again with no variation, it's going to get quite boring very quickly. That's where phrases like the one I've taught you today come in. If you are able to drop ideas like that into your compass playing, all of a sudden it's going to sound a lot more sophisticated. Allow me to demonstrate this. I'm going to play a bit of basic compass where I use both the idea I played a moment ago that most people gravitate towards, and then I'm going to integrate the phrase you learned at the start of this video as well. Have a listen. see what I mean? I haven't done much, but already your phrasing is more varied, sophisticated, and interesting. Now imagine this. Imagine you don't just have one variation for Bulerías basic compass. Imagine you've got many ideas, and you're able to use them at will when performing in a spontaneous way. That, in a nutshell, is one of the main subjects covered in my new book. You will learn how to play Bulerías basic compass in a really sophisticated, improvisatory way. And crucially, you'll also learn how to integrate this alongside other structural components such as falsettas and llamadas when performing. In short, by the end of the book, you will be able to improvise your own Bulerías solos. If all this sounds good to you, I warmly encourage you to follow the link in the description below and pre-order a copy of my new book today. I look forward to meeting you in the first chapter when the book's released, but for now, I leave what you've just learnt in your capable hands.